I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Thank you for listening to Your Working Life, my podcast series featuring thought leaders in the career and personal growth arena. You spend a significant portion of your life at work, so my goal is to provide you with tools, inspiration, and resources so you can enjoy your career and love your life. And I am delighted to welcome a very special guest and a friend to the show today, Leeann Wright. Leeann, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Caroline. It's a pleasure to be here.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to finally have you on the show. We've been talking about this for a good long time, so thank you so much for joining me. And I want to tell our global listening audience all about you. Leeann Wright is a dedicated baker who strives to lead a life of significance and service. Through her home-based business, The Wright Baker, she shares her love through loaves and encourages people to break bread together. While working full-time, she strives to share her passion for handcrafting beautiful, wholesome, delicious artisan loaves by sharing her joy through baking for good. And Leeann, you are such a role model because so many women and men are doing what you're doing, and that is the Plan C professional, where they have that full-time job, but they're really flexing their entrepreneurial muscles. So what prompted you to create The Wright Baker?
Well, that's a great question, Caroline. While I love my full-time job and I love what I do, I just felt that there was like a tiny little piece missing. I really strive for significance and service in my life, and while I can fulfill most of that in my full-time job, there was just a little part missing. So I thought, well, let's stretch my current skills and see if I can learn some new ones. Let's kind of get my creative juices flowing. And through my workplace, I had the opportunity to do some career coaching, which was through actually Indiana University Alumni Association. And so I was able to connect with you and one of your colleagues, which really helped me to kind of define my values and my needs for workplace happiness. And through that process, I kind of got to know myself a little bit better. And then I just realized, wow, I just love being in my kitchen and I love baking, and bread in particular. There's something quite special about breaking bread with friends. It's more than just eating something wholesome. For me, bread feeds the soul through fellowship. And faith, it plays a significant role in my life. And I believe God blessed me with strong hands and a loving heart. And so I kind of felt called to share this blessing through my joy of handcrafting beautiful bread. And so I share my love through loaves.
Yeah, you truly do handcraft it. I've been the great recipient of your sourdough bread, and it is incredible. And, Leeann, I can hear the smile in your voice. It is just so incredible. And there's a picture of you, which we will show in the podcast, of you in your kitchen, and you're just joy-filled when you're baking. Does baking go back in your family history? Is this something that you learned as a young girl? Is this something you learned as an adult? Where did the baking come in?
Well, my mama was quite the baker. She did a lot of good Southern cooking, and my mom claims to hate baking. I seem to recall being about 3 and a Mickey Mouse cake tin and a trash can and perhaps a bit of swearing, but it didn't go well. So I didn't really grow up baking a whole lot. I mean, we'd do cookies and things, but nothing much more difficult than that. And when my husband and I got married, he could make spaghetti out of the jar and I could burn toast. And we kind of looked at each other and thought, oh man, we really need to figure something out or we're going to be real hungry. So we started watching PBS and we went to the library and checked out a whole bunch of different cookbooks and just started experimenting and just teaching ourselves. And through that process, I learned that I had a knack for baking and that I found real joy in doing it. So
that's exciting.
Yeah.
So walk us through the first step, because as you know, so many of the women and men listening are budding entrepreneurs and they've got this idea, but they just don't know what that first step is. So how did you take your love of baking for family and friends and loved ones to an entrepreneurial movement?
Oh, sure. Well, the film "It's a Wonderful Life,"
Yeah.
and Mr. Gower, and George has the medicine, and he's thinking, "Oh, I think Mr. Gower is going to make a mistake." And he looks at a sign. It says, "Ask Dad. He knows." I asked my dad. Um, my dad is an entrepreneur and owned a family business for a number of years. So I sort of asked him, how do you know how to get started? Where do you go? What do you do? So we kind of bounced some ideas around, and he helped me kind of get a good idea of how to start working on a business plan and kind of where to go for certain resources. And then obviously through career coaching, I also received some resources and information. And so then I started just behaving like a detective,
Yeah.
I asked a ton of questions. There's a lot of stuff in the world I have no idea about. I found a friend who owns an accounting business, and I asked about tax law and, what do I need to do so I don't, screw my taxes up too much, and all that type of thing. So I spent a lot of time just asking a lot of questions. And then during the career coaching part, we had talked about a creative board of directors for me. And so I started finding people to build that board out. So I have some friends in marketing, friends who do photography, friends who seem to know every single person in town, and I sit down and have coffee with them, and, we'd swap skills. I traded bread for photographs, and, just kind of starting to network with the right people and just kind of ask questions. And that's really how I started down that route. And once I had enough information to feel like I had a good grip on kind of the steps I needed to do, then I could sit down and write a business plan. I could go to the city planning department and fill out the appropriate paperwork. I knew where to go on the state website to get registered as a business and all that type of thing.
You're such a role model, Leeann, because you are brave enough to ask questions. And I think that can be an obstacle for so many. They feel like they have to know it all, and we don't. So bravo to you, having the courage and the confidence to ask questions.
Thank you.
Now that you're up and running, right, now that you're literally baking up a storm, you were telling me before the show about the incredible holiday baking that you've been doing.
Mm-hmm.
How is your business changing and growing? You learn a lot when you're actually up and running. What have you learned thus far, and how might that change as you continue to grow the business?
Sure. Well, I never really quite expected to experience success so quickly.
Yeah.
I broke even within the first 6 weeks.
Wow,
and granted, I didn't have a whole lot of money invested because I wanted to start very small, so I could, continue to work full time and not kind of get burnt out on either end.
Yeah.
So I started very small, and the thing that I'm learning is that stick with my mission, which is really good bread. And bringing people together in fellowship. So while I first started the business and I was just focused on bread, several people had asked if I ever taught classes. And so I recently taught a pizza crust class. And I brought people into my home kitchen, people who didn't necessarily know each other, but they all knew me one way or another. And we had a lovely afternoon where they came together, they kneaded bread, they learned about the different types of flour and that type of thing. And we had a good time of fellowshipping and even sampled some pizza afterwards. And so that's kind of what I'm learning is really listening to customer needs and wants, and then tying that back to my mission of breaking bread and fellowship. And so I think that's something that I can develop,
Yeah.
constantly. That's a constant learning curve.
And that's such a teachable moment, Leanne, for everyone listening, that you do have a mission and a core set of values. And this significance in life and service and fellowship is just palpable in all that you do. So, again, cheers to you for really honoring that. Was that hard to really develop the mission, or did that come naturally?
No, actually, it really wasn't. Even in my bread baking world, I really strive to lead a life of significance and service, and so it just naturally translated over. I feel that my place on earth is meant to be of use to others,
Mm.
and so kind of finding that path, whatever that means, professionally or as a baker. It seemed to just be a real no-brainer there for me.
Good for you. Good for you. So let's break it down to the first step. I'm thinking of the woman who's listening to this or the gentleman who's listening saying, okay, I've got that great idea, but I'm stuck. I'm stuck in that
Hmm.
doubt mode or negative self-talk. One, what was the first step you took? And two, how do you overcome self-doubt? Because we all have it. It's a natural part of life.
Sure. So I think the first step really is to ask people you know.
Mm.
So, yeah, do you have that creative board of directors for yourself? If you don't, go get one. Ask people you find interesting to go out for a quick cup of coffee. Just say, it was kind of like dating, I think. I just sort of walked up to somebody in my workplace and said, "Hi, I think you're really interesting and I would love to have a cup of coffee with you. Would you have about 10 minutes that you would give me and we could
Yeah.
chat?" And I have never ever had any problem with that question. And in fact, people have been quite flattered and,
Yeah.
have developed some great mentoring relationships that way. So that would be the first step. The second step is, start tapping into the resources that you have. Your alma mater. Usually, there's a school of business at most universities or a career services um, resource. Tap into that and see what they have to offer. The local small business administration is also a great resource. I met some gentlemen there who actually were quite big in the
Mm.
food service industry. They have since retired and now volunteers with the SBA, and so they had a lot of great suggestions for me as well. And those would probably be the three steps that I would say that's where you start.
Excellent.
And then once you get a little bit more information, plan it out, sketch it out, and then go with your next step.
Good deal. So, what about self doubt? Leanne, I think this is something that so many of us experience, and it's one of those vulnerable topics because no one wants to admit that they have dips in self confidence or
Hmm.
experience the imposter syndrome. But I think it's so natural, and the more we demystify it, I think the more confidence we can all gain. So, did you ever have those moments of, gosh, can I do this?
Just about every other day.
Bless your heart. Thank you for your willingness to share that.
Yeah, well, in fact, yesterday I thought, oh, I'm going to try this like wonderful gingerbread spice bundt cake, and it was a total disaster.
Was
And I
it?
thought, what was I thinking? It was a mess. But you shake those off because everybody fails. The important part is that you fail forward, you learn something, pick yourself up, and keep going.
Good for you.
And
Good for you.
I think part of that, I have a happiness manifesto,
Mm.
and I learned this tip from Gretchen Rubin, who wrote The Happiness Project
Yes.
and Better Than Before. And so I took a note out of her book and I created myself a happiness manifesto to help me stay positive and remind myself that, it's a journey.
Yeah.
And as long as you get to the tasty part at the end, it's okay.
Brilliant.
And so my happiness manifesto is just 12 short points. 1, ask God. 2, seek always significance and service. 3, be Leanne. 4, think like a giver. 5, clothe myself with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. 6, assume positive intent. 7, I'm a role model in all that I do, whether I like it or not. 8, grow where I'm planted. 9, Authenticity is energizing, economical, and efficient. 10, err on the side of optimism and positive energy and accentuate the positive. 11, connect before you correct. And 12, be consistent but also surprise.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Well, my dear, you're a rock star and your positivity is infectious. I'll tell you that. So
Well, thank you.
let's talk about next steps. Do you have an ultimate goal with the business or do you see it scaling even larger? I mean, I'm so impressed that you broke even in 6 weeks and clearly it's growing. So what's next?
Well, I think, it depends on the phase of life. Like
Yeah.
right now, I'm kind of in the small building phase.
Yeah.
It's at some point, family circumstances may change a little bit, and maybe it needs to take a side burner, or maybe I suddenly can buy a building and open a bakery. But I think my ultimate dream is to own a small boutique bakery and baking school, kind of like King Arthur flour, which is which is the only flour that I use. They don't sponsor me yet,
but they will. They will.
Yeah. And kind of learning how to build more business partnerships. One of the things that the Small Business Administration suggested was to see how to partner with King Arthur Flour. There are coffee shops that are intelligentsia coffee shops that they only use and sell intelligentsia coffee.
Right.
I could be a bakery that only uses King Arthur Flour. So like learning how to build that type of relationship. I'd like to further my community partnerships. Right now, I do bake the communion bread for my church, and I also donate loaves a few times a month to the local men's shelter. So trying to expand that to support the community and feed that fellowship component, and just to maintain slow, steady growth, because professionally, I still want to keep on track with my career. But with my baking career, I want to make sure that it's fun, because when it's not fun, I think that's time to quit.
I applaud you. Suffering is optional. It should definitely be fun. And I can hear that in your voice. Leeann Wright, you are a joy. You are an inspiration. I'm so impressed with what you're doing. And congratulations on the Wright Baker. Such a success. Now, you do bread by appointment, because I realize the business is growing as we speak. So tell us how we can reach out to you online.
Sure. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. You can find me by going to mrs.wrights.kitchen, and that's Wright with a W. You can also search for the hashtag bread done right, again with a W. And I really enjoy being on Instagram quite a bit, so there are a lot of pictures of English muffins there if you're curious.
There are some great pictures, and it makes me hungry just looking at them, which means your pictures work. And as I said, having tasted your delicious bread, I can tell you from experience, it is extraordinary. Leeann, thank you so much, my dear. You are an inspiration, and I'm so grateful that you shared your wisdom and experience with our global audience today.
Thank you, Caroline. I appreciate this opportunity to break bread with your audience today.
Thanks, my dear. Be well. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in to Your Working Life, where my goal is to help you design your career destiny so it doesn't happen by default. Career and life satisfaction is possible, and it's time to embrace what you love doing so you can do more of it. The show is now available on iTunes, YouTube, Podbean, and Stitcher, and I hope you will subscribe so you can get fresh episodes each week. I'm Caroline Dowd-Higgins. Take good care.